All right, so we've brought Noah into the picture here, and we're going to be switching out the out of focus version of him with an in focus one. I know it's a silly picture to pick, but we know we really just loved how much this was a day in the life of a typical, family when you have a toddler, a baby, and and an elementary school kid. All right, so let's first start by getting Noah into position over where he was before. Now, we imported this as a smart object. The reason is because when we move and shift things around, we'll be able to do so without damaging the file. If we shrink it down too small and then open it back up again really large, we're going to be losing a lot of data. So it's always best to work when you're doing head swaps, if you can, as a smart object. Plus, if we need to edit it later, we can go back and edit it, and we can import it, and it will keep everything the same. All right, so let's start with getting him into position. There's a few tricks to getting him into position. So we're going to go to the free transform, and now we've got that highlighted, and we can bring this across the screen. Now, just sticking Noah in right here, he's going to be way too big, and there's way too much background stuff going on, and we don't know if we've lined him up correctly. So I'm going to bring the screen a little smaller just to make it easier for me to see at the moment. And I'm going to switch the blend mode to multiply. The reason is that way I can see both what I'm working on currently and what's below. I need to be able to line up his head with the head that's there. So you can wiggle it all around and you can see. Alrighty, and we can either do it by lining up the nostrils or working on the ears. You want to have the person you drop in for a head swap be the same size as what they are there. You don't want to have a kid with a giant head. So in order to match that up, it's best to follow the ears or the nostrils. In this picture, I'm choosing to follow the ears. So I've got it lined up on one side. Let's check up carefully. All right, now I know that I'm going to have to do some editing of his hand that's behind there when we're done, but that's okay. That'll be really easy to do. So I got that lined up. Now here's the crucial step. I need to hold the Shift key down while I change his size. By holding the Shift key down, I'm keeping the image accurate in terms of, I'm just shrinking the size. I'm not going to be increasing it on one side or another and warping the image. So we don't want any warping going on. So holding the Shift key allows us to enlarge and shrink it up as at will. So it's kind of fun. All right, so let's get that kind of close. Now we need to wiggle it up. I let go of the Shift key while I'm repositioning. There we go. And we're getting closer. Look, the heads are starting to match. The ears are starting to match. And we can use our arrow keys if we want to get really precise, which is a good thing to do. So we can just wiggle it down and around using the arrow keys. And I'm thinking that's pretty good. It's not 100%, especially if we come down here and look at the bottom, we can see that we're going to have some overlap of the blurry shirt, which is not something we want to do, and maybe some overlap of the blurry shirt there. So I'll show you what the next step is. All right, so let's confirm this. Now remember, this isn't a permanent choice since we are using a smart object, but this will work great for what we want. Yeah, we're done, right? No, not quite. So let's switch the multiply mode back to normal. There he is. Now, there's lots of ways that you can use masks, and you can use the selection tool, and you can select him and get a pretty good selection. That works great. There's nothing wrong with doing that. However, I like to go old school and manual when I'm doing my head swaps. I know it seems kind of funny, but it really kind of helps me to make sure that the edges are clean and how I'd like them, and that I'm placing it just where I want. So let's go ahead and switch this mask and invert it to black. And so the old one shows up by pushing Command I. All right, so there we've got the blurry face again. Now we're going to paint on this layer mask. Remember, we're going to paint white on the black because the black blocks and the white is what lets us see through. It's like clear. Okay, so we're going to, oh look, there he is. And I'm going to actually switch my brush to a harder size for around these edges. Look at that. The plaid shirt's coming in beautifully there. There we go. Yep. And since I shot with a shallow depth of field, even though he's in focus, when I shot the grass there, it still looks really accurate when I drop it in. It's really convenient. Now remember, we missed that spot in the shoulder up here, and we're going to have to go back and take care of that. And we missed that spot over here on the shoulder. See that grass right there, and see that little bit of arm in green? We'll need to change that, but we can do that in a moment. Okay, and let's go up. Now when we're doing up here towards this hairline, So I did miss over here by the ear. Those are things I'm going to catch up and touch up in a little bit. I just didn't want you to think that I was forgetting about it. Now, it's important that we get at least part of his hairline and hair in focus. We can go into detail if we want to, making new hair and adding it in so it'll be sharper. But you know what? I think it's going to be okay, especially if we're extra careful here, to have a little bit of blur on the edge of the hair because we are shooting with a narrow focus, and we aren't going to be printing this picture too big. It's going to be on a Christmas card, and it's going to be really small. Now, if you were going to print this image giant, like on a canvas or something, I would actually do almost what we did with the smart object here and create a new layer and add a little bit more depth and a little bit more hair up here. So there are ways to make this even better, but for our limited time here, I think this will be a great way to go. All right, so let's go around his ear and clean that up. Right here. Now this kind of process takes a while, so I appreciate you sticking with me. I hope to entertain you as we're going. All right, there we go, right around the ear. Give it a nice little trim. Not sure to shave off some of this hair in his ear right there. Okay, so remember we have this spot here that we need to take care of, but the bigger concern I have is down here. Now there's several things we can do. One of those is to come back and grab some of the shirt from here. We could make the shirt blurry on the edge, but it was a little too blurry for my liking. I didn't like that. So because I don't want the shirt too blurry on the edge, I'm going to use something called the puppet warp tools. It doesn't work perfectly in this situation, but it works pretty dang well. So I'm going to teach you what I love about the puppet warp tool. Okay, here we go. File, edit, puppet warp. Now, puppet warp is like what you'd think it is. It's like you can turn your selection into like a marionette. You can move and maneuver him all around. We need to place pins wherever we don't want things to move. So we don't want his face to move. We don't want his arms to move. We don't want his shoulders to move. We don't want the grass. No, that one we can remove. That one's fine. We'll leave that there. But we definitely want down here to move, as well as up here and maybe about right here. So when I hold down the shift button, I can select multiple points and those will move together. So I want it to pivot probably around here. So we want to have this one, and this one selected. And when we pull on this point, we can move his whole body, but see where we have the fixed points, it doesn't move. So we've moved his whole body over a little bit to block off that space. So let's go with that. Oh, that's looking a lot better. It's not 100% perfect, but it's looking so much nicer. We have some cleanup down here at the bottom that we need to do because of the puppet warping, but that shouldn't be too hard. So let's go ahead and clean this up a little tiny bit. Again, I appreciate your patience as we go through this edit because it's a lot of fun to see what you can do as we go through this. And let's clean up this thing, this mask right here. Look at that. We're just cleaning up. I'm painting black, so I'm creating from the layer below. I'm grabbing the information from the layer below, not from the layer we're on. There we go. We're getting this all arranged. Now remember, that's where his old hand was by that ear there. So we're going to have to replace that in a second. All right, let's look around the edges. We've got that blurry hair there. We're not going to worry about that because it would require replacing this hair, making a new layer mask and bringing it in to fill, just like we're doing with this. All right, let's go around his ear just a little bit more because of that puppet warp wiggled it just a tiny bit. Let's remove that. There we go. That's looking better. Looks good. All right, so this part right here I don't like so much. Boop, boop, that shoulder. So we are going to, look down here at the grass too. We got to get rid of that first. Let's do that first. This can take a long time to do. So that's the problem with head swaps is, especially when they're wearing plaid, it can be time consuming to get it exactly looking great. You know what? I don't think I mind that blur of that shoulder there. Let's zoom out and see if it's distracting. You know, it really isn't. It isn't something that I see. However, I do see the stuff over by his ear and that hand that looks like it's out of place. So let's work on that. And I think we're almost going to be done here. All right, so let's do X here. All right, clean it up there. We're going to create a new layer, and we're actually going to put it below where we were working. I know, kind of funny, huh? All right, so let's grab this clone stamp. And by doing it below, what's going to happen is where we already have the mask on the above image, we won't go over what we've already put in with our new head swap. All right, so we're going to pick a location to grab from. And because it's nice, easy white pants, it's pretty easy to grab. Look at that. It's not too hard to do. And we're wiggling our way over. Look at that. Not looking too shabby. Again, this is going to be printed small for a card on a little 4x6. So it's not, we don't have to go into too much detail worrying about every little thing. All right. Oop, let's tighten that ear down. Those ears can be tricky, and that's sometimes where you would want to use the refine edge tool and things like that with a traditional mask. But in this situation, this was just as easy. There we go. Bring that ear back because I'm painting on white so it shows. All right, and black so it disappears. We've almost got it nailed. That's a much more crisp looking ear. All right, let's look at it. There he is. He's in focus there. She's crying. It's just a funny, funny card. So let's put these things into a group so we can see all the changes together. Put them in there. Perfect. Look, we've done a great head swap. I really like it. He's in focus. I can let this one slide. We can send this out.